Paris, 1792. The air itself trembled with fear. Blood ran through the cobblestone streets, and the guillotine's blade fell day after day. Mercy had become a forgotten word. But amid the routine executions, one death rose above all others, not because of its swiftness, but because of its unspeakable cruelty. Her name was Princess Marie Therese Louise of Savoy-Carignan, remembered simply as the Princess de Lamballe. She was no traitor, no plotter of conspiracies, no military general. She was, above all, a friend. The closest confidant of Queen Marie Antoinette. A woman whose only crime was loyalty. In an age where betrayal was rewarded and devotion punished, her loyalty would become her death sentence. The September massacres of 1792, drenched in horror, would mark her as one of the most tragic victims. But her end would not come with the blade of the guillotine. It would come in a way so savage, even hardened revolutionaries recoiled in shock. Behind every noble title, there lies a human story of loss, love, and sacrifice. Born on September 8, 1749, into one of Europe's oldest noble houses, Lamballe's life seemed destined for comfort and grandeur. At 17, she entered into a glittering arranged marriage with Louis Alexander de Bourbon, Prince de Lamballe, cousin to the king. But behind the jewels and gold, tragedy struck fast. Her husband, known for gambling and reckless indulgences, died suddenly a year later, likely from disease brought by his affairs. At just 18, she became a widow. Alone. Heartbroken. Yet instead of retreating from court life, she chose to dedicate herself to service, compassion, and faith. Her grief reshaped her into someone gentle, resilient, and deeply devoted to those she loved. It was these very qualities that would soon draw her into the orbit of another young woman, a foreign princess struggling to survive her new life in France. But what began as friendship inside Versailles' glittering walls would one day become the very reason for her doom. What happens when loyalty becomes both a blessing and a curse? Marie Antoinette, the Austrian-born Dauphine, was young, homesick, and overwhelmed by the suffocating rules of Versailles. She needed a friend, and she found one in Lamballe. Their bond grew quickly, stitched together by shared loneliness and mutual trust. By 1774, when Marie Antoinette became queen, her devotion to Lamballe was so strong that she created a new position just for her, superintendent of the queen's household. The role gave Lamballe status, power, and an enormous salary. But it also painted a glowing target on her back. Pamphlets and gutter gossip soon accused Lamballe of corruption, extravagance, and worse. To the public, she became a foreign influence, a symbol of everything wrong with the monarchy. The very love and loyalty that lifted her to the queen's side now marked her for destruction. Every whisper against the queen also carried her name, and soon the crowd would be shouting it. The revolution did not strike like lightning, it brewed like a storm. France groaned under debt, famine, and anger. Bread riots echoed through the streets. Pamphlets painted Antoinette as Madame Deficit. And by her side, always, was Lamballe. She offered comfort when Antoinette faced coldness from her husband. She stood by her through pregnancies, public humiliation, and endless criticism. To the queen, Lamballe was more than a courtier, she was a sister, a lifeline. But to the people, she was an extension of Antoinette's supposed arrogance. Their friendship, pure and loyal, was twisted into a symbol of corruption. And when the mob finally broke the palace gates, her fate was sealed in their eyes. Sometimes the cruelest prisons are the choices we cannot escape. 1789 erupted. The Bastille fell, mobs surged, and Versailles was invaded. By 1791, the royal family's desperate attempt to flee at Varennes failed, shattering any illusion of safety. Friends begged Lamballe to escape France while she could. She could have lived safely in foreign courts, far from the rising chaos. She knew staying meant death. But she chose loyalty over survival. She refused to abandon the queen, even as the monarchy collapsed around them. In that single choice, she wrote the first line of her death sentence. If Versailles was a palace of gold, La Force was a palace of rot. On August 19, 1792, the mob dragged Lamballe to La Force prison. Its stone walls reeked of filth, its corridors echoed with cries. Once wrapped in silk, she now sat on a wooden floor among thieves and criminals. Guards taunted her, demanding she renounce the monarchy and denounce Marie Antoinette. She refused. Day after day, she prayed, shared what little food she had, and comforted other prisoners. To the revolutionaries, her silence was defiance. To the other captives, her composure was saintly. But outside those prison walls, a tide of blood was rising, and it was about to crash down upon her. Fear can turn ordinary men into executioners. By September, panic consumed Paris. Rumors spread that prisoners would escape and join advancing enemy armies. Revolutionary leaders fanned the flames. On September 2nd, the killing began. For 5 days, mobs stormed prisons, slaughtering nobles and priests by the hundreds. And soon, word spread. In La Force prison sat the Queen's dearest friend. The mob wanted her head, not just for revenge, but as a message. And so, on September 3, 1792, the mob dragged her from her cell, to face a tribunal with no mercy. Justice was not blind in revolutionary Paris, it was bloodthirsty. In the prison courtyard, a drunken tribunal awaited. No lawyers. No defense. Just shouts and jeers. They demanded Lamballe swear loyalty to the Republic. They demanded she curse the monarchy and denounce her beloved friend. Calmly, she refused. She would not betray the Queen. She would not betray herself. For a fleeting moment, silence fell. Even some of her enemies felt the weight of her dignity. But then, the crowd roared. The mob had wanted submission. Instead they found defiance. And their fury exploded. Some deaths are quick. Hers was meant to be a spectacle. She was dragged into the street. Clubs struck her. Stones flew. Her garments torn. The violence was not meant to kill quickly, but to humiliate, to terrorize. At last, she fell. A blade severed her head. But her death was only the beginning. The mob paraded her head on a pike, styling her hair, painting her face, to make her recognizable. This was not just execution. This was psychological warfare. But the mob wasn't done. They had one last audience in mind. Marie Antoinette herself. Imagine seeing your dearest friend returned to you as a weapon. Through the streets of Paris, the mob sang and cheered, carrying Lamballe's severed head like a trophy. Their destination was the temple, where the royal family was imprisoned. They demanded the Queen be forced to look. At first she refused. But the guards insisted. At the window, Marie Antoinette saw her friend's lifeless face, styled grotesquely to mimic beauty. She fainted instantly. Those around her feared her spirit had finally broken. The revolution had destroyed not just a body, but a soul. But her death did not end in Paris, it echoed across Europe. News spread swiftly. Across Europe, monarchs recoiled in horror. Her fate became evidence that the revolution had abandoned all civility. Coalitions against France hardened. Even within France, moderates were shaken. Was this justice, or pure barbarism? What radicals celebrated as triumph instead isolated France further, setting the stage for wars that would consume the very men who fueled the bloodshed. The blade they sharpened for their enemies would soon turn on themselves. Some stories fade with time, hers grew stronger. Her death became legend. To revolutionaries, proof of vengeance. To monarchists, proof of savagery. To later generations, a cautionary tale. Lamballe was remembered not only as a victim, but as a symbol. Of loyalty that did not waver. Of friendship that endured to the grave. Of dignity in the face of horror. Her story forces us to confront human extremes, how love can shine brightest in the darkest hours, and how cruelty can strip away civilization in an instant. The Princess de Lamballe died in unimaginable horror, yet her life remains an enduring testament to loyalty, friendship, and courage. In an age consumed by hatred, she chose love. And that choice, though it cost her life, still shines as a reminder that even in history's darkest moments, the human spirit can burn with light.